I wanted to kick things off for this webinar and introduce myself and the panel. So my name is Chris Ventura. I'm the CEO of Harness Projects. We're an education company that specializes in cybersecurity training. Now, whether you're here to kickstart your cybersecurity career or if you're exploring new ways to advance in this field, you're in the right place. Tonight, we're not just talking about cybersecurity, we're also going to dive into how to gain some real-world experience that sets you apart in this competitive industry. For some background, when we built our training program, we spent a lot of time speaking to hiring managers to understand exactly what they're looking for in cybersecurity professionals. And they made it clear that they really were looking for people with not just the theoretical knowledge, but those that could hit the ground running from day one. And it's part of the reason why our real project learning model has been designed to give our students hands-on experience with actual cybersecurity projects provided by our company partners. And tonight and today, for those in Australia, we're going to be giving you insights in how we do this by speaking to our panel of students, a mentor, and company partner who have joined us. They're going to share their experiences with you, but we also want to make sure that this webinar is as valuable as possible for you, so we'll be answering your questions throughout the session. We're here to provide you with the knowledge and insights you need to make informed decisions about your career. So stick around, ask your questions, and I really encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity to learn from those who've been through it. Now, as a side note and a special thanks to all of you for joining us today, we're going to be revealing a discount code at the end of the webinar. This code will give you $1,000 off our next cybersecurity real project training program, which is valid for a week as we only have limited places remaining for our next cohort. To claim your discount, you can either quote the code when you speak to one of our career advisors or enter it as part of any scholarship application. And so for those joining us for the first time and who are not familiar, our scholarships are a separate program that can subsidize a significant portion off the course fees for eligible students. So please make sure to stay until the end and we'll share the webinar code. Alrighty, so I'd like to welcome each of our panelists who are joining us today. And I want to start with two of our students who have been very gracious to give up their time with us and share their experiences, but also answer some of the questions today. So first, I'd like to welcome Belle England, who enrolled in our March 2024 cybersecurity cohort. Welcome, Belle.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Thanks, Belle. And I'd also like to welcome Mason Daniel, who enrolled in our May 2024 cybersecurity cohort. Welcome, Mason.
Thank you, Chris. Hey, everybody.
Nice to have you both with us. Next on the panel, I want to introduce one of our mentors who you've seen on some of our earlier webinars this year. Austin Phillips is a security and engineering manager at DataScan. Welcome, Austin. Do you want to tell us maybe just a quick overview of the work that you do at DataScan?
Yeah, of course. And thank you again for having me. I always enjoy coming to these talks. So what I do at DataScan is a wide variety of things. I am the security engineering manager, but really I handle all aspects when it comes to both the design, architect, and implementation of our security program. We handle everything from incident response to actual tool engineering, management, risk management and strategy, threat analytics, working with our security tools and vendors. I do it all, which is great. So I have a wide range of experience, but my background actually before moving to DataScan was in critical infrastructure and vulnerability management with government contractors. So wide ranging and very critical aspects and when it comes to cybersecurity as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Elston, for the background. Nice to have you with us again. And finally, I'd like to introduce Dan Rigby, who is head of product at SlaveCheck and one of our company partners who's recently participated in a project with our students. Welcome, Dan. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the work that you do at SlaveCheck?
Thanks, Chris. I'm the head of product and technology at SlaveCheck, and we're on a very big mission of eradicating modern slavery. So there's an estimated 50 million people in modern slavery around the world at this point, and it's a very big undertaking. And what we do is we have a combination of business compliance and in-field solutions where we partner with NGOs around the world on our big mission.
Awesome. An important mission. Thanks, Dan, for your introduction. Nice to have you with us. I appreciate you taking the time. So for everyone just in terms of logistics for this webinar and the format, this will be a Q&A session with the panel. And I'm going to kick things off with some questions for everyone, but I also want to give you all a chance to ask your questions directly to any of the panelists. So whether it's questions seeking advice about cybersecurity, about your first role, your career, or even questions specifically about our real project learning course, we're going to try and get to as many of those as possible. To make that easier, please ensure to use the Q&A button. It's at the bottom of your screen on your Zoom screen to submit your questions. You can also upvote questions that are already there. So if you see something that you would like to hear answered as well, make sure to upvote and we'll get to as many as possible. Alrighty. So to kick things off, I wanted to actually start with you, Dan, just with an initial question. If you think back to when we first had our conversation, what was the reason that you decided to partner with Harness Projects on a project in this type of context with students?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think it was, well, really first meeting yourself and the team. It was immediately obvious that there's benefit on both sides. And so I've been really pleased to be involved. Both, the company is quite small with a big mission and opportunity, and just the opportunity to give back to students in a real world scenario at the same time as getting the benefit of the security assessment is just really a no-brainer from a company perspective.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. And maybe tell us a little bit about just the high-level scope of what the students were tasked to perform without going into any specifics, obviously.
Yeah, so it was a black box security assessment. And what we went through is I was asked quite a few detailed questions around our security posture and the things that we have for the business compliance platform. And then students went away and did their research and work, and then came back with a really comprehensive report, which I was really pleased to get.
Awesome. And did that report go on to support your business in a positive way? Was it helpful insights?
Yeah, very much so.
Awesome.
So almost immediately we went away and fixed up some of the higher risk issues that came about. But it was also just really comprehensive to have an understanding of the entire risk profile. So really, really beneficial.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. And I guess for you, Austin, you were mentoring the project and supporting the students through that recent project with SlaveCheck. What was the experience like guiding students through that project and to the outcome that they achieved?
No, it was honestly a very impressive engagement from the students. We had quite a few students who had no technical experience whatsoever joining this program, and with the assistance of the entire Harness Projects team, supporting with the prereq work and working with them on a week-to-week basis, spending the extra time in one-on-one sessions with the students. We were able to very quickly scale this team up to the point where they could conduct a more advanced project like this in a relatively short amount of time, and they were able to accomplish a lot. So it was very impressive to see these students adapt and overcome that gap for those that didn't have that kind of core IT experience you would think this kind of project would require.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin. And I guess I'd love to hear from the students as well. I know, Mason, that you were on that specific project. What was your experience like working on a live company project for SlaveCheck?
I think it was great. I mean, that was one of the main reasons I even joined, was for that real project experience. And I think my favorite part from the project experience too was actually collaborating with the team and then having a mentor like Austin to go to whenever we have any issues. So you get to kind of do the whole thing from, like Dan said, we met him, interviewed him, gotten the information we needed, all the way to running the scans and then bringing the information back to the client. So I just think that's really valuable because it's what you'd be doing in real life too. So that was my favorite part about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Mason. And for everyone in attendance, this was a web app infrastructure, sorry, a web app vulnerability assessment project that Mason completed with his cohort of students. Now, we're also doing a risk assessment, which is a slightly different type of project for SlaveCheck, and Belle is participating in that project. That's underway at the moment. But Belle, I'd like to get maybe just your experience from the other project that you ran, which was with a different company, with EcoDrive. What was it like for yourself?
So I don't have an IT background. In fact, my background is forestry and then sales and then healthcare. So I am starting with zero. And so I had, when I joined the program, we started with a vulnerability assessment. And there is this fear of the command line interface because that's something that I don't work with or I don't normally touch, and I'm like afraid of it. But through the program, we went through everything, and the program is just not the workshop itself. It's a whole thing. There's plural site lessons, and there's also hands-on labs. And so that's the working together with your mentor. You learn all that in a very integrated way. And it was a good feeling for me to not have that fear anymore after that first project. As a matter of fact, my favorite part of the first project was when we were doing Nmap and we were typing the commands and things were coming up, and I don't understand what it is, but through the program, through discussions with the mentor, and my mentor Wolf then was explaining to us every single detail, it all makes a sense and it clicks. And this is just strengthened with a second project, which was a vulnerability app assessment, where you already had a little bit of familiarity with what you're gonna get. But my favorite part on that project was we use this tool called, it's just a web tool, security headers, and we were expecting the worst, but then when we went to the project, we didn't find a lot of stuff. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, for me, if I look back from where I was from the beginning and where I'm at now, it's a huge difference. So I can really see the change in knowledge, in skills, between just the two projects. And I'm excited to explore more in this third one.
Awesome, Belle. Thanks for providing all that context. That's so lovely to hear, the progression that you've been on. Appreciate that. And Austin, just in terms of, we're obviously talking about these real project aspects of the course. As a hiring manager in cybersecurity, how important is getting to the real world experience one way or another when you're making this type of career transition?
No, it's beyond measurable how important it is to be able to get that experience in out the gate. I hear time and time again, especially the last few years, of folks that are just doing anything they can to break into the industry and trying to land that first role. And oftentimes what we see is that other trainings or coursework to get you into the industry is all theory based. There's no meat and potatoes and actual hands-on keyboard experience in a real project. And so being able to get this experience now working with actual clients and getting something that you can actually put on your resume and your portfolio is going to help that hiring manager see the actual skills you have. It's not theory, it's something you've actually done. And so if I myself as a hiring manager, I'm always looking for somebody that can prove very early on that they can provide value in that return of investment earlier rather than later. So being able to quantify that through the portfolio you can provide from doing one of these projects, especially to be able to do 4 of them, is very powerful.
Thanks, Austin. And I guess extending on that, what are the specific skills that you think sort of new starters in cybersecurity should be learning as a priority on top of the real project experience?
So definitely the one of the more important fundamentals, especially for our scanning projects, would be a network layer, because the initial network fundamentals. as well as understanding Linux and Windows environments. It doesn't need to be anything advanced, but just at least knowing and understanding kind of the terminology and how they work will help you better be able to kind of digest the information for the project. But again, we had quite a few individuals that did not have any of that coming into their initial project. So while it's not required, it definitely will kind of set you in a competitive edge.
Awesome. And I guess from the student's point of view, Mason or Belle, whoever would like to answer this, what were the specific skills you were hoping to learn from joining Harness projects outside of the experience aspect?
So for me, it was more so like the hands-on experience, like Austin was talking about, because from my background, I went to school and got a 2-year degree in cybersecurity, a little bit of hands-on experience. You would do labs here and there, but then I've worked in as a technical support analyst for a year now, but still you don't get that experience you need for cybersecurity. And so learning all the like for the vulnerability scanning, like in NICTO and all these other scanning tools that I really haven't been able to use much, and seeing how easy it is just to set it up yourself at home too, it really I guess brought up my confidence level too, and what my abilities and what I can do. So my favorite part, yeah, I liked all the tools that we used a lot. It was a good learning experience.
Awesome. Thanks, Mason. How about you, Belle?
So the technical skills are definitely my weaker point right now, and I would love to learn more of that. Translating that into how to get a job uh, as a I'm not sure if it's like a mid-career transition or just a career transition, but I would like to develop more of that technical skills that we are starting to develop here. And I noticed that it's important to learn how to ask questions as well. And I'm glad that through the harness projects, and we have our mentor and we have clients who are very generous with their time and very patient with us in answering those questions. Like, it's a safe space to make mistakes if you have any, because they know that this is a learning experience for us. So technical skills definitely, and learning how to ask the questions.
Thanks, Belle. Great points. Dan, from your point of view, you've been a hiring manager when you're recruiting talent. What are some of the skills that you look for, whether it's in a cybersecurity professional or just generally in terms of tech?
Yeah, so I think empathy and curiosity are the kind of two big ones, and it was great to hear Belle just mention that around the freedom to ask questions and make mistakes and that kind of thing. So, and I think humility is key as well. And what was really cool is seeing that in the group that came through, and also mentioned previously, I think as much real world experience as you can possibly get is really helpful.
Great. Thanks, Dan. And for Belle and Mason, when you were making your decision about selecting a program that was going to support you in these goals, what was the process that you went through? Belle, do you want to maybe start, and we can go to Mason after that?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that, because I was actually in a webinar. I sat in the first webinar, and I found the webinar because somehow when I decided that cybersecurity is the right step for me, Facebook just started showing me ads. And so I put down all of those ads, put them in a post-it, put them in my wall. And I started doing like a pro con, and like I did my research is all I'm saying. And I talked to everyone who would talk to me. I asked about the program. I asked about the content. I spoke with Chris. And it took me a few weeks before I decided. And what stood out was, of course, the real project experience that you get from Harness. And it just worked. It was perfect for me. It was the right amount of time. I work full time, And so balancing that with family life, being a full-time mom, a full-time maid at home, you technically do not have any time for anything else. However, I know that and because of my experience now, this is just the right balance of work and of learning. And not to mention, you also have aside from the workshops with the mentors and the real project, you also have uh, other resources that are available to you, like the hands-on experience with TryHackMe and Pluralsight. These are really valuable, and it just enriches my participation and my experience to the program as well. So I believe that I made a good choice based on all my research.
It was surreal finding out that you were in that attendee list in that first webinar, and I was like, of course. That was funny when we found that out. Nathan, what about yourself? How did you make your choice?
So I had a mentor that reached out to me and let me know about harness projects. And like we've all said multiple times, the big thing you get out of this course is you get those real life projects. So what I was really looking for is hand-on experience mainly. And like Austin says, most boot camps, they just don't give you that real full experience like Harness provided. So after I talked to Chris a few times, I decided to take. Honestly, I've loved it so far. I mean, because it feels like I'm actually doing something, I guess, more so than you're not just going to school. Like you have the videos for you that are available. You have TryHackMe, like Belle mentioned, and then you have your mentor, but then you also get to do a real life project that you can put on your resume and you'll have something to show for it.
Thanks, Mason. And so maybe let's talk a little bit about the steps after the course. You know, Austin, from your point of view, what would be your advice for graduates of this program in tips around their job search and how they can start to look for their first cybersecurity role?
Yes, so I think a large part of that comes from networking. I think that you need to start, getting out of your comfort zone a bit and starting finding those actual communities that are local to you, and then also, in that you can join virtually to not only start kind of understanding that overarching threat landscape of what risks are going on, how to get in it, make sure you're understanding how the industry is changing, but also to start connecting with the leaders in your, whether it's in your state or in your country or in your region, and regions, in other regions as well. And as you're fostering those relationships and you're putting yourself out there and you're getting on LinkedIn, there are oftentimes, especially even after you land, even before you land that first job, it's somebody you know or somebody you work with, even somebody in your cohort that could be the link that gets you that first job and then the next job after that as well. So networking is huge. And on top of that, developing those soft skills. I really loved, what Belle said earlier about, being comfortable to kind of be vulnerable, and working in communication and building that out. It's more than just technical ability. There's two sides to it, and those soft skills are super important.
Great points. And one of the things we try and do in our program is when we assess students at the end of the projects, we give them feedback, not just on those cyber skills, but on some of the attitudinal strengths, behavioral skills, how do they communicate? How do they present their work, collaborate with others? Because as Austin said, when you're looking for that first role, a lot of the things that will make or break whether someone is hired is that behavioral fit, and will they be a great team member, let alone their technical skills. So something to keep in mind. Okay, and Dan, what about your advice? I mean, you've seen people go through career transitions, and I'm sure you've had juniors in your team at one point or other in your career. What has been sort of the most effective way of finding that first role or moving into a new job? Just general tips that you might give to people.
Yeah, over my career, I've probably hired a couple of hundred people over the time, and it's a really interesting question. I do appreciate the networking answer. I think that's key, is trying to find people that fit to go through that. But also, I think just chasing the things that you're good at and that you want to be doing. So many times I've had juniors come in and even transition from different career paths and across. So I think it also comes back to the last question, which was around that curiosity piece. So I think stay curious and chase the things that you're interested in.
Awesome. And Belle, Mason, have you given some thought about what you're going to do after graduation, after that last project?
After graduation, so I currently am working full time right now, and the good thing about doing this, I have the security of a current job. It's kind of scary thinking about just jumping in there and putting yourself out there. But I've started networking, which is a great advice from all the mentors. I haven't decided on a on a focus. I know that cybersecurity, there's always a space for you somewhere out there, but I was thinking of doing more like GRC work because I kind of like it. However, I do want to be useful in a crisis, so I will keep on digging deep and enriching my technical skills, because I'm like, if I have a friend who is in trouble, I want to know, I would like to be able to help that friend. I would like to be able to know, tell them this is what you're going to do. So I definitely want to do something similar to like incident response if I had the opportunity to train for it and be more prepared for it. I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's where I'm at right now.
Totally makes sense. Thanks, Belle. Mason.
I honestly, my goal would be to try to get into security at that point, because I guess like Belle said, how there's your focus. Right now, I would say my favorite right now would be blue team, just because infrastructure and everything's the most attractive to me right now. But there's just so many different aspects of security too. I want to learn a little bit of everything just so I get well rounded. But I guess also another thing afterwards too, always security, is you just got to constantly keep learning. So it'll just be finding that next thing I need to learn and just keep growing from there would also be another goal.
Thanks, Mason. I'm going to just jump to the audience. We have some questions coming through on the chat, but just a reminder, please submit your questions through the Q&A button so it's easier for us to catch those. But we have a question here from Heba, just specifically around, I want to ask how someone can use LinkedIn and get the most out of it for job opportunities. So what's your general advice from the usage of LinkedIn as like a job reach out channel?
Yeah, so I can kick that off. And I struggled with this initially myself, and really it's a matter of just there's a few different approaches that I think can work. It's not always going to be one size fits all, but LinkedIn has a great job board and capability to apply directly with your LinkedIn account. It's a great way to kind of start looking at what's available, what's out there, understand what kind of pay ranges are for the types of roles you're looking at. When it comes to the actual networking focused piece, really it's starting to leverage, oh, this person went to my high school, my college, or this person was at this company I worked at one point, or these people, it'll show people in your industry, and just starting to connect, and even just being vulnerable to say, hey, you don't know me, but I'm trying to grow my network, I'm trying to break into X role or X field. When I was first starting out, I was coming from that IT infrastructure kind of role. And so I was just engaging anywhere I could in my local area on LinkedIn, saying, I'm trying to connect with other, industry leaders in the space to understand, what opportunities are available. And just again, it kind of go back to being vulnerable and, not kind of taking that leap of faith. And you'll find there are many people out there that want to grow this community and bring the people in. I hear time and time again in talks that we are constantly in a major change in the industry right now, and we need smart, dedicated people that are continuing to grow in their careers in cyber and are not stagnant, because we are really on the next battlefield when it comes to cyber warfare, and we need people that know what they're doing and are trying to go in their careers. So there's opportunity to seize, and we as other people in the industry, including myself, are trying to find people that are eager to join in to help build them up as well.
Thanks, Austin. Good points for sure. And one of the things I've noticed with LinkedIn is when we were recruiting for a role last year, I had the person that we hired reached out directly on LinkedIn as a message, as a follow-up to their application, and took the time to be thoughtful about sharing what they knew about our company and why the role was important to them. And it gave me a sense of their personality, which I think made it a really easy decision to bring them into an interview. And so it can help to have that sort of personal connection, even though it does take more time if you're applying for a lot of roles. I think it goes a long way. So just a thought from my side. One thing I'd like to ask attendees, excuse me, is where are you guys at in your cybersecurity journey? I'd love to hear if you're at the start of your career path, or if you're currently in a cyber role and looking to progress. What brought you to the webinar? Feel free to share this in the chat or in the Q&A button, and we'll try to have a dialogue and address your situation as well. Cool. And so Mitchell's asked a question. Do you want to just rephrase that question, Mitchell, in the Q&A, and we'll get to that as soon as possible. While we're waiting for those questions, I'm going to just share briefly the structure of our next cybersecurity cohort, just so you all have a bit of a visual cue of what to expect in the programs that Belle and Mason have been speaking about. So I'm just going to share screen and just bring up a quick overview. So if you can all see that, this is typically how our cybersecurity courses are structured. Now, what's included are 4 projects. Excuse me, 3 of them are with different organizations, whether they're in the US or Australia. We run cohorts across both time zones. You'll see here that the first project is typically an infrastructure vulnerability assessment project. This is where we get students actually conducting an infrastructure vulnerability assessment, vulnerability scans, and that sort of thing. The first project for our next cohort will be with Wilderlands, which is an environmental conservation organization. The following project after that pivots into the web app infrastructure vulnerability space. So we look at web app vulnerabilities. We use some more web app based tools to do scanning. And each of these first 2 projects, the students present a report to the client. They have to meet their client. They have to conduct requirements gathering with them and effectively present their findings at the end of the project. This second project is with an organization called iAccess Life. They do some really great work in providing improved accessibility for people living with a disability. So really awesome, meaningful projects to start with. And in project 3, this is where we pivot into more of that GRC process, risk compliance side of things. And so we get students doing a risk assessment. And in the next course, we're going to be looking at doing a risk assessment for community resources, which is a social and community services enterprise. In the final project, project 4, this is the first or the only project which is using some simulations. And we do that because it's all about incident response, which is another really important area to get familiar with and learn about. So incident response is really all about how do we respond to incidents, how do we conduct the forensics, build remediation plans and incident response plans. So we have some simulated incidents. Obviously, we can't work on a live one. We can't wait for those things to happen because they're quite sensitive and time-based. But we do on the final project look at some simulated incidents and go through what a typical incident responder would do. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview of the course structure that we cover. Cool. So I'm just going to jump back to some of the Q&As that are coming through. So Mitchell has asked, I finished my CompTIA A+, Sec+, Slicer Plus, and Network Plus. I was wondering about the experience side as I'm currently unable to get a start. Is there any pathway, including your course or elsewhere, for experience? So maybe I'll start with Austin, given, Mitchell's asking about some of the certifications and how experience sort of can support that work he's already done.
Yeah, no, so you have absolutely have a great level of certifications to get your start in this career field. You've done a great job in completing those. But it kind of goes back to, again, the certifications are a huge part of it, and I think you'd be very well off coming into this program. But that's the key part, is having that actual hands-on true experience to showcase those skills that you've learned from those certifications. That sets you apart from everybody else in the crowd who kind of the typical path I'm seeing lately is just going to get a certification and then immediately going to try and get a job. There are thousands and thousands of other applicants doing that same thing. And so enrolling in this program and getting this hands-on experience with doing this actual work will help set you up for success when in the hiring process and in the hiring manager, and will get you that role, as well as being able to kind of hone in some of the skills you learned in those certifications.
Great. Thanks, Austin. Hopefully that was helpful, Mitchell. Let us know if you have any follow-up questions. Heba asks, can someone get into cybersecurity with a computer science degree, I assume, or background? Austin, your thoughts on that, and then maybe we'll go to Dan as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know quite a few people who started in the computer science space with just a degree. The one caveat is, again, it is very broad. The degree will help you get jobs, especially if you're looking at more like a federal level role. But I would supplement that with, certifications and going through this program to help make sure that you have, all the tools needed to land that first role.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin. So we have another question. Oh, sorry, Dan, did you want to add your thoughts on?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, degrees are helpful, and they can set you up, but I'm also seeing a big shift towards more practical applications. And I've certainly hired people, even software engineers, who haven't got degrees and have the practical application. So I don't think it's necessary, but it, of course, is helpful.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, guys. Okay, so we'll just continue. Hopefully that was helpful for you, Heba. So the next question is from Anonymous. This question is more about class participation. How many absences are allowed during each project or the entire course? Well, I can field that one. Obviously, attendance is important to get the most out of the program. However, we obviously are aware that from time to time, due to scheduling or illness, students can't always attend every workshop throughout the course. And we record every workshop, so it's always available the very next morning for students to catch up on, review what was discussed and that sort of thing. So it's not the end of the world. We don't really have a set number of how many absences are allowed or not. At the end of the day, this is a course to get the most out of it for your own benefit. And so we encourage attendance as much as possible, but we'll work with you. And, we've had students who've had, some serious life emergencies occur during a project that they had not anticipated. And we've given them extensions on submission of their project so they can get their certification and move on. We also have deferral programs. So if the worst happens, we can defer you to a future cohort and find, when the timing is better for you. So yeah, we just work with you on a case-by-case basis there. So this is, I guess, a flipped question to what was asked earlier from Anonymous. Can I get a first job without certifications? What do you guys think? Austin, do you want to start?
Yeah, I landed my first role without certifications. Now, granted, this was years ago, but I still do see those that are coming in, whether they have experience elsewhere, maybe they have experience in like an applicable maybe like a lateral type of industry that some of those skills translate. It really just depends on both the hiring manager and the candidate themselves actually showing, what they bring to the table. It's all really about, when you're going into the interview process, if you can land that first interview, you're already in the door, really. At that point, you just need to showcase yourself and show why that company would succeed and what the investment you would bring to the table. And so you don't need certifications. It's a benefit. It will help you, just as having hands-on experience. It's all about getting that best opportunity to land that role that you want. And I truly believe that the role you're looking for, you should try and find that role that you're going to be passionate about. If you try and join a job just to get a job, you're going to kind of struggle, kind of slogging through that initially if you're not getting passion out of what it is you're doing. So if you're going to go for something that you're passionate and you care about, I would 100%, advise those that I'm mentoring to get the hands-on experience, get the certifications if they're going to provide value, but it's not, again, it's optional.
Thanks, Austin. Great points for sure. Next question is about pivoting into cyber for people in their mid 30s. And I know, Belle, you had a question about age in the webinar that you attended earlier in the year. Do you want to take this one and give us your perspectives, and then we'll go to Austin and Dan?
Yeah, sure. I had the same question when I attended the webinar the first time. As a matter of fact, I said, I'm old. Can I still pivot? Is there like still a chance for me to pivot? But what I found now that I'm on the other side, yes, there is space for everybody. And people tell me that, and I believe that because I see it. And it's not just me, there are other people in my cohort that have pivoted towards cybersecurity. And we are all using what we already have, like what Austin has mentioned, that the skills that are transferable to cybersecurity. And you may not know it, but you do have that experience already that are transferable. And I just wanted to say that I just pushed 40 in this year, and I think this was a big gift to myself to allow myself to enjoy something that I didn't expect that I would enjoy. So if you are really interested in cybersecurity, try to answer that question: what makes you interested? And see that if you jump on it and because you're really interested, that it will have a place for you. So yeah.
Thank you. That's a lovely reply, and hope that's helpful. And Austin, I guess as a hiring manager, and Dan as well, what would you say to people who are pivoting? Mid-30s is young. I mean, God, if that's old, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, no, I laughed at the comment, not because it's a bad question, but it's funny because I actually had an intern who was in their mid-50s, taking that leap and changing careers, and we hired her on as an intern, and she really came out, was able to transfer a lot of skills, like Belle said, and bring them to the table, and a lot of very interesting perspectives that we don't see from those that may be in the field for a while. I love bringing in somebody with a different background or a different skill set that we've had prior, because you never know what somebody with a different set of eyes is going to be able to uncover or understand about your organization or how you've built things or have some different insights. So the answer to your question is no. There's absolutely opportunity to pivot even well into your 30s, 40s, 50s. And if you come in and you're willing to put in the work and get your hands dirty on the keyboard to kind of work through figuring this out, anybody can do it. I had somebody at a talk recently that I attended at a conference that said, we used to believe in magic as a kid. You look at Harry Potter, they have wands and spell books, but really magic still exists, and it's software. And these spell books are really just these programs, these certifications. If you go and you take the time to learn this knowledge and this information, we can create magic It's all about using this code to develop these cool and powerful things. So as security practitioners, being able to build these amazing things and protect them and secure organizations, anybody can do that.
Well
Love
said,
that
Austin.
analogy. Yeah, I completely agree. I think life experience is actually really helpful. So it all comes down to the energy that you put into it. I feel like age is just a number.
Yeah, seems to be the consensus. Thanks, everyone. Great. Okay, just a quick question on time zones for the courses. I'll just answer this for Ken. So Ken is in the US and needs to work in a specific time frame, 5 p.m. to 6 a.m. Central US time. Are there any companies that I can work entry-level remote in Australian time zones? And Ken goes into some of their background here. So Ken, just to answer the first part of your question, currently our next cohort is US-based time zone, so 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Mountain Time. So that might overlap with your work time. We will have Australian-based time zones coming up. Not entirely confirmed just yet in terms of which cohort that will be, but if you get in touch with us, we'll let you know as soon as we have like an Australian-based time zone that works with your night shift hours in a better way. So yeah, I'll put my email address in the chat for anyone who has questions like Ken and they want to follow up and stay in contact. We can sort that out for you. So thanks for that question. Okay, next question is from Anonymous. How likely is it to get intern roles? Being a part-time in cybersecurity roles, I am the international student in the Masters of ICT. So I assume you're asking how easy are intern roles to get part-time, given that you're also a student at the moment. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so a lot of organizations I see who are, really organizations you want to be a part of do internship programs. They're usually looking for those that are in some form of higher learning, whether it's something like a harness projects or a campus specific collegiate program. In the summertime, in between school years, they will have programs. I've led a few of these programs. We're typically looking for only a handful of individuals, though, so they can be difficult at times to get into. My advice in those would be a bit of accuracy through volume, kind of going through and just hitting as many internships as you can to give yourself the best chance. But really, my advice, if you are looking to get into the field, is if you come in and through a harness projects program, at that point you will be past an internship really, and kind of looking more of that entry level analyst role, especially at like a security operations center or some type of managed service provider.
Great. Thanks, Austin. Okay, we're going to just jump to a salary question here. What salary can I expect as a junior cyber employee? Now, this might vary, obviously, because we have some Australian and some US-based attendants. But Austin, from the US point of view, what would you say is the expectation there?
Yeah, so again, just a caveat, it can range depending on region you are in the US. It can depend on the industry. It can depend on the specifics in regards to what that type of opportunity is leveraging, whether it's more of like a consultation, a contract. It can vary. I have seen opportunities around the $45,000 a year range. I've seen opportunities more like the $70,000 to $80,000 range. So it can vary. That has been historically around like the Midwest to almost East Coast regions in the US. So if you're on, a higher cost of living area, that could be higher.
Got it. And Dan, do you have any insights on this at all from your experience?
Well, I'm in a smaller organization at the moment, so it's been quite some time since I've done hiring for the more junior or entry level roles. So yeah, I back what Austin's saying in that I think region does make a difference, but it's also the remote work revolution that's occurred can make a big difference as well.
Yeah, great points. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. I think from an Australian, from the market research that we did, just jogging my memory, it was around 70 to 90 Australian dollars, so 70 to 90K. So hopefully that helps you, Anonymous, on the general range. Okay. So just moving on to the next question. Is the field of cyber changing or becoming more diverse? This person has some stereotypes of it being dominated by male tech nerds, sorry, but not sure if that's true. Fair question. Austin, as a male tech nerd, what would you say is the dominating stereotype?
So I honestly think where we saw this huge shift from that stereotypical, only wears hoodies into work with a black cap, has that very stereotypical vibe. We saw this huge shift around the start of COVID in that 2020. In the last 4 years, we have seen, women in power really come into this industry. It is not as, male dominated as it once was, and I applaud it. I've seen very successful and very smart women come in and are leading these talks, these conferences that I attend. And there's an organization that partners with the FBI here in the US, that's CISA. The director is a woman named Jen Easterly, who is amazing, very smart woman. Gone are the days of that stereotype. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. You go to the next conference, was DEF CON, and there's still those kind of nerds you're picturing there. But love them, very smart still. But we are seeing this huge shift to a very diverse industry, and it's really changed it for the better.
Awesome. Dan, thoughts?
Yeah, I smile at that as well. I mean, for me, it's been a good 15 years watching that diversity happen. The number of people that I've hired based on merit is the case, and so I see that being prevalent. As mentioned, like I've got networked friends who are in AWS and really large organizations, and diverse backgrounds as well. So it's not a worry, not a concern.
Yeah, so it sounds like the trend's going in the direction of more diversity for that person who asked the question. So hopefully that gives you some confidence on where it's heading. So the next question is, do you think it's possible to find employment prior to finishing the full program? So could this person be employable after a couple of projects with us? I'll give you guys a shot at answering this. I'll give you my feedback in a second, but Austin, feel free to jump in on that one.
Yeah, I think it is absolutely possible. Especially if somebody, I know somebody asked earlier about having certifications. If you come in and have these certifications and then knock out your initial, project, you can start applying. Nothing's going to stop you from applying and even potentially, getting that role. And if you have it, that's great. But I would be remiss to say that it could potentially cause issues where now you're having to handle a new job, that you're having to learn all these things and get up to speed. You're spending extra time and effort to do that, while also still trying to complete your coursework as well that you already dedicated time, money, and effort into. So it's kind of it could be a double-edged sword. But if you can handle that, then the more power to you, really.
Great point. And yeah, I guess I'll just add to that. So, we've been running our courses for nearly 7 years, and we have seen quite a number of students who have landed jobs during the program, in some of our other streams that have been around for longer. And but I think it's still important to be aware that a lot of this comes down to where your level of confidence is in terms of the skill set that you have and what you've learned so far. Obviously students come into our course from all different backgrounds, some with zero background in these areas and some with some already established. And I think the ones who are getting jobs within the course program may have a little bit of background already. But, if you are really clicking with this material and you're going above and beyond and even, absorbing more material outside of just our course framework, and you're building that confidence and you want to, test yourself in an interview and you feel confident about your abilities, then that's a great place to start applying at jobs from in terms of mindset, because a lot of what generates a success or failure for you is that confidence level in being able to speak about your experience, your capabilities, answering all the questions that a hiring manager would have. So if you feel like you're at that stage halfway through the course, then by all means, you should go for it. Time is, I see so many students always thinking about starting a course and hesitating, waiting for the right time. And just for doing this for 7 years, the best time is always yesterday, is just get started and get after it. Because yeah, you'll be surprised at how quickly things can evolve. So hopefully that helps give you a bit of perspective there. So this is just a quick question on our course and our program, how to sign up. So for Anonymous, if you saw this and this is the first time you've interacted with Harness projects, I will put a link in the chat where you can check us out on our website. I'll also include my email address as a comment a bit earlier. Feel free to reach out and we can arrange a time to have a chat about the projects and what's available for you. Okay, the next question is an interesting one. How do you see the demand for cyber practitioners changing in the years ahead, especially as AI develops? Love to hear Austin and Dan's views on this. And maybe Mason, if you've got any insights into this, I don't know if that's an area of interest of yours. Austin, start with us.
Yeah, so what we've started to see, especially as regulations start to come out around generative AI and LLMs and machine learning over the past, year, more and more industries and companies are having to tackle this issue. And yes, Gen AI and LLMs, they are very powerful tools that are going to ramp up companies in ways we never thought possible. They are enabling them and building these very powerful, very cool things and optimizing their processes. And if a company isn't embracing this new technology, they will quickly fall behind the times and their competitors. So we're going to see a huge shift similar to how we saw, the move to cloud and the digital, transformation years in the 2010s. Over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. And with all of this development and this power and this, technology growing, we are going to see a radical shift in security attacks and breaches and incidents. We are already seeing these red team, these penetration testers, these hackers. They are learning to use this technology to make the cost of entry and the capability of entry into attacks and exploitation easier than ever. We are seeing ransomware as a service and being able to generate malicious code with generative AI out the gate. A very minimal amount of skills being required to do this work. And so with that is going to come this kind of call to action, as I'm kind of calling it, to we need more people in this industry. We cannot do this alone. We're going to need people that can be experienced and knowledgeable in AI to combat these types of attacks. And so we're already seeing the regulations coming out from on the artificial intelligence side that are needing to appoint chief artificial intelligence officers on boards to be able to say, my sole focus is artificial intelligence and the security around it. And so we need to now expand our threat landscape ginormously to be able to cover this. So the answer to your question is the demand's higher than ever. Our job is not the same as it was even 5 years ago. And since I believe it was September or October 2022, when ChatGPT released, we are now behind the times. So we need to catch up with it. So we need your help to be able to do that.
Thanks, Austin. Great points. Dan.
Yeah, I very much back that. I think it's a game changer in a similar way that crypto was the same thing. I've got a number of AI projects on the go, and yeah, it's a steep learning curve. So I think really these sort of projects coming out are enablers, and we're going to need people to expand into that space and understand it properly.
Points. Anything from Mason or Belle on this point? Have you guys thought about the AI aspect or just where cybersecurity is moving towards?
I guess for me, what I've thought about being new and trying to get into the industry is especially the past year, how much AI has developed. That's one thing that I definitely want to be able to learn more about, because I don't know much about it other than, the stuff you see on Twitter or X about it. And you hear, like, there was an attack I heard recently about a teacher, disgruntled teacher that pretended to be the athletic director, ended up getting him fired, but obviously the disgruntled teacher ended up getting in trouble for it. So it's just crazy how easy it is to take advantage of someone with AI. So getting into the industry, being able to understand it, it would be my goal around it right now.
Awesome. Good points, Mason. Thanks, guys. Hopefully that helps, Anonymous. Next question is just purely a financial one around the course cost. So this is all listed on our website if you want to check out our course pricing. We do have scholarship programs that reduce the course fee for eligible students. We also have early bird discounts and different things like that. So make sure to just go to the link that I just posted in the chat. You can see all that information there. And yeah, if you have any questions, just email me and we can discuss any flexible payment options, things that can support you to get access to the program. Next question is interesting. Is a 17-year-old able to do this course? I probably need to speak to you one-on-one. Generally, we need either guardian approval or someone over the age of 18 in Australia. So in the US, it's likely over 18 as well. So just reach out to me and we can have a discussion about your circumstances. And if you've got a guardian, might be possible. The main thing that we are mindful of is obviously these are projects with companies and we want to ensure that you feel confident that you're able to, interact at that sort of professional level. And yeah, if you are excited and motivated by that fact and you've got a guardian that, supports you, then we can definitely have a discussion about it. Okay, next question was just, is there anything that specific that can be done to best prepare for this course? So I'll touch on this, and maybe Austin, because you've mentored our projects, you might have some insight here as well. One of the things we do for new enrollments is to give them some pre-work just to cover some of the fundamentals around networking, Windows OS, Linux OS, and some scripting. It's sort of just some baseline material that gets you familiar with things that you're going to be using throughout the course. But obviously anything you can do to immerse yourself in some of that IT networking space is really helpful for a course like this and for cybersecurity in general. So yeah, we can give you more information about that if you want to reach out over email. Austin, what would you suggest for new students coming into this course and how they can best prepare?
So really the best course, of action that I would give for somebody that's about to start this program, obviously, like you said, the great point, the pre-work and the prerequisite work is really going to help at least make sure you have the minimal viable, information needed to be successful. My advice would be just trying to understand even going to YouTube and just understanding security, industry 2024 and starting to understand what's going on in the threat landscape today. And when I say threat landscape, I mean what is actually happening when it comes to attacks and the overall industry of security and how things are working. Understanding, again, going back to those core like networking fundamentals. So even looking at, at network Plus through the CompTIA course 101, just to kind of starting to understand those terms and how everything works, or general network crash course would be great. That would be, if you have time, great. But again, we do a great job of kind of going through that pre-work to make sure you at least have the minimum viable information you need for the project.
Great points, Austin. Yeah, absolutely. Like getting familiar with the cybersecurity terminology and threats out there, that's a really good place to start as well. Next question was, I saw you have scholarships on your website. How do you know if you qualify for a scholarship? So with the scholarship program, there's an application form that you need to submit, and we have a series of questions that we go through to find out a little bit more about your background and your intention and behind wanting to do the course. Because you're on the webinar, I'll give you a little hint. Generally, what we're looking for and what our company partners are looking for are individuals who are motivated to learn in this unique way. Because it's different, it is real project learning. You're going to meet with people from companies, sometimes CEOs, sometimes heads of product like Dan. I think it's important that you are excited by that prospect and that you're ready for that type of learning experience. So yeah, if you can, you know, state that clearly in your scholarship, and obviously depending on how many seats we have available, those sorts of things will be determining whether you qualify. We usually get back to people within about 24 to 48 hours, so it's a pretty efficient turnaround. Just yeah, make sure to submit your application and we'll get back to you. How easy is it to rise to higher positions in cyber from a SOC level, so a security operations center level? Austin.
So I myself came from a security operations center. I initially started as an analyst and then quickly started, moving into more of a lead in that team before managing it, and then moving on to DataScan. So my answer is that it's absolutely possible, and all of it is going to solely ride on your capability and your intent. Your capability from a technical perspective, your capability from the soft skills and that kind of like professional acumen, and being able to not only understand the technical and speak in a technical way. I feel like oftentimes where I see people struggle in trying to move to that next level is that emotional intelligence and the capability to actually transfer that knowledge and explain it in a way that's easily digestible for somebody at that higher level. You have to think those kind of management and leadership positions are oftentimes speaking with C-suite and executives who have no knowledge or experience or very limited knowledge in what it is you're trying to explain to them. So having that capability to translate a very technical piece of information in a way that's being able to be digested by whoever it is you're speaking to is a great skill, and really often what kind of sets that apart. The other side of it really is kind of learning that emotional intelligence to be able to understand what makes a good leader, how to lead with empathy. Oftentimes we see in this industry, security professionals come in and it's their way or the highway, and only have no empathy for who it is they're trying to train and teach and work with. Very risk adverse. You have to lead with empathy. Leading security through empathy is really a great way to kind of start working towards that leadership role, if that's what you're interested in.
Awesome insight, Austin. Thanks for that. Great. And Heba asked just when does our next course start? So we're actually got a kickoff meeting next week, towards the middle to the second half of next week. But the first workshop with the mentor will be the following week. So yeah, if you are looking to get started, there is a window to join. Austin will be the mentor for the first project in that cohort. So you'll get to be guided through his expertise through that project with Wilderlands, which is the environmental organization I mentioned. So yeah, Heba, reach out if you want to have a chat about that. Winnie, upon completion of the course, is there assistance in finding a job? Yeah, so we have our own design job guarantee program. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context on this. What happens is at the end of the course, once students have finished their 4 projects, we go through a little bit of a process with them to make sure that they're starting to position themselves really strongly as like a security analyst or whatever type of cyber role they're looking to apply for. Generally, it's security analyst type of roles, SOC roles. And so we're looking at LinkedIn, cover letter, resume, and their cyber project work, right? How can they demonstrate that? Obviously, with the confidentiality aspects we have to be aware of, but how do we present that to show evidence that you've got some experience? So we start with that, and then students go through a process of applying for roles, sort of 4 to 5 roles a week. It's a bit of a process of consistency, And, we monitor how students go during that process. Now, part of the guarantee part is to say to students, if you don't land a job within 6 months of doing the course, we're going to bring you back onto another project at no cost to the student as a way to further develop whatever area of experience they needed more attention in, whether it was infrastructure or web app or risk assessment. And the idea behind this is to take some of the feedback that hiring managers might have been sharing and further support our students so that they can go back out there and get that role. It's quite rare for students to have to come back for an extra project in the other courses that we've run in cyber as well. So we feel pretty confident that once you do a program like this, you'll find a role. But you also have to put your best foot forward. You've got to attend the interviews. You need to, practice your answers to those questions. So from time to time, we've even done webinars where we invite graduates to practice their interviews on some of these webinars. So there are things that we do to try and give our students support. So hopefully that helps give you a bit of a sense of what to expect, Winnie. So next question is, can I start this course if I know little to nothing about cybersecurity? I think I want to ask Belle to answer that question, given what you shared earlier about coming into this fresh and without that technical background.
Yeah, you can start the course. Like me, again, my background is in forestry. Academically, I went to sales, and then now I'm working in healthcare. I know nothing about cybersecurity except that you are very vulnerable. And so that was my primary motivation. Like, I want to know what happened. How can this happen? How can I stop it from happening? And it's in that motivation that just kept me on digging deeper into the knowledge and the vocabulary. It's good that you have mentors who you can book time with to talk things through, and it mostly just develop more knowledge about the project, but also questions about, like, in the more general aspect of cybersecurity. I really appreciate that, because the mentors that I've had were so generous with their time and their advice. And so having that support in harness projects, I believe that without any knowledge, you will be able to find your way and get to a path that you would like to be in. Additionally, I wanted to add that the value of actually having a client working in a real world project is the feedback you can get. You can set up a home lab on your own. You just follow YouTube videos. You can do that, definitely, and you can put that in your portfolio. But you won't get a feedback from a mentor who can tell you how you could have improved. You wouldn't have the feedback from a client or a person who's actually going to use this in their business. So I guess that's what makes it stand out. Harness projects is that you have that, and you can speak to that and I'm planning on speaking to it when you come for interviews. So I know that I went a little bit off the rail there, but I just wanted to add that it's very important that you get feedback from the output that you actually do when you're in there.
Thanks, Belle. That's great answer. Appreciate it. Okay, and just in terms of the job market out there, Austin and Dan, how many remote work options or work from home options are there in cyber? Is it common?
Yeah, so we've seen, especially when COVID initially started occurring and, lockdowns happened, a lot of companies changed their entire infrastructure and the way that they handle actual, user workstations to allow that remote work. And we still see remote work following in today. I am, for the most part, a remote worker. I now will say the other side of it is we have started to see companies in the recent year or two start kind of shifting back towards at least a hybrid type of role. Not to say I still constantly see on the job boards, opportunities for remote work, so they are still there. But I think something to kind of be cognizant of is that we are starting to see these, companies kind of shift to a degree to hybrid, if even in some of the more extreme cases, coming back full-time in office. I will say most companies don't really see that full-time in office, happening anymore. But I do kind of see this kind of shift with some organizations moving to at least like 3 times a week in office.
Right. Excellent. And Dan, from your perspective?
Yeah, I'm seeing that same shift happen, but I actually think it'll come back again to mostly remote. I think the opportunities for great people and candidates out there means that region-based really limits a company's ability to get good people. And so for maybe as long as I can remember now, I've had software engineers remotely. I had a head of security of cyber reporting to me a couple of businesses ago, and yeah, he was wholly remote. So yeah, I am seeing that shift happen, but I'm personally fighting against it because I think remote's the way to go.
Interesting. Cool. Thanks, guys. We have a question just about one-on-one support in the course. Is it just in the workshop that you talk to mentors? So no, thanks for that question. No, students basically can reach out to their mentors anytime during the week. Belle and Mason, maybe you're best to comment here. What was the support like for you guys on the projects? Mason, feel free.
So yeah, you get your time during the week, your 3-hour meetup time, but then also you have plenty of time throughout the week to schedule any one-on-one meeting with your mentor, whether that's you just want to talk about your growth, or if you need help with the project, or just want more information on the project. So you have plenty of time to also meet with your mentor outside.
Yeah, we made a policy decision that we're going to pay our mentors to be available for that support time for students, not just confine it to a class session, because you don't want to wait a whole week to get a question answered. You want to be able to get those questions answered when you need it on the project. And because our projects are time critical, there's a final presentation date approaching. You need to get moving. You need to keep removing obstacles so that you can arrive at that final presentation ready to go. Cool. The next question is, how did the team of students work on the project in the online sessions? Is it a team project? Perhaps, Belle, you want to share how that works for everyone?
Yeah, so for each project, we work together as a group when we are conducting the interviews, the client interviews. We work together as a group, but we also work on our own. And then we get together as a group again, and then make the report, the final report. But it's like we do team collaboration, and also we build our own individual reports. And that's where you would really need the help of your mentor to direct you if you're kind of light, or if it's just too much and then you need to subtract. So it's a really good experience because you get this team effort, but at the same time, I mean, you get the support of the group, but at the same time, you also develop your own skills in doing these individual tasks. So you're not going to be lost in any task. You're always going to be guided, and there's always going to be support.
Thanks, Belle. Yeah, we try to give that mix of team collaboration, which you're going to have to do in a workplace. So you have to get familiar and confident with those skills, but equally give you that time to build your own unique portfolio piece, right? And so, for example, with some of the clients that we have, they might have multiple IP addresses that we're going to be scanning as part of our vulnerability assessment. And so those will be distributed amongst the students, and each student has a responsibility to scan a certain IP or URL and come back with their findings. And then those findings are then synthesized into a group report for the client, which is Dan can speak about. The report that he received was a culmination of all the students' work. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. So this will be the last question, and then I'm going to reveal the coupon code because we are towards the end of time for this webinar that I mentioned earlier. So the last question is cyber something that is likely to be offshored to countries with lower cost workforces, or is being based locally important? It's an interesting question. First time I've seen that one.
I think that is all, I agree. That's a very interesting question. And I don't have a glass ball to say what the next 5 to 8 years is going to, do to this industry. But I personally do not see a situation where we are going to be shipping all of cybersecurity offshore. There's always going to be, we're seeing in the industry where we have these CISOs, these chief information security officers that need to be engaged with a board, and that team, he needs, somebody that he can have access to on his team that usually handles pretty specific and important data. And the problem you see, if you start leveraging multiple entities that are outside your country, your organization, you have to deal with specific regulations around data. I just don't necessarily see it being 100% the case. There may be certain areas where it's possible. I do see, however, a kind of growth in markets where companies may not have the expertise internally to kind of have a stood up security practice. And so they rely very heavily on these major cybersecurity vendors like CrowdStrike. And I'm sure most everybody in this session has heard of that name due to the nature of the incident that occurred 2 weeks ago. And so where I see concern is organizations leveraging too heavily into one specific vendor to run their security program and leaning on these kind of dependency, issues we're starting to see is more likely to occur. Whether that's through a type of deployment issue like we saw in the CrowdStrike case, or a cyber incident that could compromise all of their clients using it. That's kind of something I'm seeing with a lot of organizations that are not regulated to have an internal practice. But I go back to there's always going to be those certain situations where they could potentially offshore it. I just personally don't see that happening unless there's, again, another kind of radical shift in how we do things over the course of the next 8 to 10 years.
Great. Thanks, Austin. Any other thoughts on that, Dan, or is it?
Yeah, I think cybersecurity is one that you, as a business, want to keep close to home as best as you can. So I don't think it's a big risk of offshoring.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Okay, I just noticed one last question in the chat from Ralph. Hope everyone's doing well. I have a question about getting started in cyber. What certifications do I need? Are there any specific ones that you would say call out as useful?
Yeah, so for a beginner getting into this industry, I think there are two that are, kind of always kind of the go-to in regards to, what kind of point people to. It's the Network Plus from CompTIA and the Security Plus. Both of them, are very low cost certifications to get and provide a base level foundation to kind of understand the kind of foundational layers. I go back to, again, don't rely too heavily on just specific certifications. You want to have a wide variety of expertise, including hands-on experience. But if you're specifically for certifications, those are kind of two I typically point people towards.
Great. Thank you, Austin, and thanks, everyone. I'm just going to quickly reveal the coupon code for everyone who's patiently waiting for that. I appreciate your attendance. It was really great questions. I think I think there was a lot of interesting insights from the group. So hopefully that was helpful for you all. So thank you, everyone, for your attendance. To our panel, Austin, Dan, Belle, and Mason, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here and giving all your insights about the program and about cyber in general. Looking forward to seeing, Belle and Mason, how things progress for you over the next few projects, and I'm sure we'll touch base again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.